A good morning to you. It is Friday, the 15th day of July 2016. Glad that you're watching KTN News. This is Worldview with me, Sharon Momanyi. Welcome to the program. Now, a lorry has struck a crowd after Bastille Day celebrations in the southern French city of Nice, killing at least 84 people and injuring dozens. The driver was neutralized and guns and grenades were found inside the lorry. Officials said it was an attack and asked people to stay indoors. About 50 people were injured, some critically, in the incident on Thursday evening.
Horror again has struck France.
It's become horrifically common. People running in fear, screams piercing the night. Too many dead.
I saw like a lot of dead bodies. They were just like single. Nobody were around them. They had like jogging shoes on or like a bike. There was a wheelchair.
The latest terror attack happening in Nice, France, where people gathered to watch fireworks and celebrate Bastille Day. Witnesses say a man in a long white truck started shooting in the crowd of people.
We heard these sounds, pop, 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 pop. I don't know how many. And then we saw people jumping from the Promenade d'Anglais to this corrugated metal roof.
French officials say the man then accelerated, using his truck as a weapon, mowing down those in his way.
I was walking amongst dead bodies and wounded people and families of those people just gathering around the bodies.
Police shot the driver, killing him. According to a top local official, police found firearms, explosives, and grenades in the truck. Now, anti-terror prosecutors have taken over the investigation to determine who is responsible for causing so much pain.
And it is clear that we have to do everything to ensure that we can fight against the scourge of terrorism.
I'm Mary Maloney reporting.
Indeed, France is reeling from a string of attacks. And just to put this in perspective, we are now joined by way of phone by Andrew Franklin, who is a security expert. Andrew, what can we say about this? Why is France, on the spotlight? There have been a string of terrorist attacks in the country, from early last year, really.
Well, good morning. France is a target because of its very large-scale military interventions against mainly Al-Qaeda in the Sahel region of Africa. Its military interventions in places like Mali to ensure that Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb was unable to seize Bamako, and its very overt security efforts to dislodge Gaddafi. Its activities in places like Syria have made it a very high target. France also has a very large resident population of Arabs, of Muslims, from its former colonial possessions in North Africa, who some of whom have become radicalized, some of whom are, of course, petty criminals, and who are looking to make names for themselves.
Is there anything pointing to the extent of preparedness of France, really, security-wise?
Well, in fact, this terrorist outrage demonstrates an obvious gap and a lapse in the security measures that were taken to safeguard large public gatherings on Bastille Day.
Mm-hmm. And just speaking about it from a global perspective, because of course terrorism is a global, menace. And what does this mean with regard to that conversation, with regard to combating terror, not just in France but across the globe?
Well, in fact, what it says is we're not really learning from what goes on elsewhere in other places. The use of private cars to kill security force personnel or civilians is not unusual. We saw this in October and November of 2014 in Israel, where Palestinians were driving cars into roadblocks to kill border guards, were driving their cars into people waiting at metro or bus stops, killing civilians. It's just the scope of this Paris outrage that is so horrifying and terrific. But, of course, the terrorist here picked his target, and knowing full well that there would be hundreds of thousands of people in a very constricted area, And the question then becomes, is why was an 18-wheel lorry, tractor-trailer in effect, allowed to get onto the promenade? It is not unusual to have long-haul lorries or transport taking place on public holidays, overnight, of course, but certainly not through the heart of a major resort city on the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I mean, let me put it this way. You would not find this sort of thing happening any longer on New Year's Eve in Times Square in New York City.
So this is a state of preparedness for France, is that what you're saying?
This is a state of preparedness, the ability to mitigate or prevent an attack of this sort on a high-value target, a high-visibility target that you might have expectations that someone would want to do something to disrupt the celebrations and make a big splash, which is what has happened, of course.
And of course, this is just coming days after, the Euro 2016 Championship. So there is that expectation that there was a level of extensive security in place.
You're absolutely correct. There was a very high level of security in place that probably prevented any attacks on the venues for the UEFA competition. The problem is the security forces are human beings too, and you cannot stay on high alert forever. I think the French now have to, of course, reevaluate again their border controls, their border security, and also their information and intelligence sharing across borders and amongst their own security forces. Not because you can prevent every attack, but because you can mitigate or eliminate the possibilities or that such an attack can take place. You can reduce the frequency of such attacks through proactive measures.
All right. Thank you very much. Andrew Franklin there just speaking to us with regard to that very latest tragic attack in Nice in France, where by now we're told 84 people have lost their lives after that truck driver just drove into that Bastille Day celebrations in Nice. Let's move on now. And African migrants are in limbo in Costa Rica after Nicaragua denied them entry. Thousands of African migrants amassed on the Costa Rican border after they were denied to cross over towards the United States by Nicaragua.
Scores of migrants from Africa have been left stranded in Costa Rica after they were denied entry into Nicaragua on the way over land north to the United States. According to the Costa Rica Red Cross, some 2,000 migrants, largely from Africa, Asia and Haiti, have come to Costa Rica. Many use the country as a crossing point north for the American dream. But the overland route to the U.S. is via Nicaragua, and that country has refused to open up its borders. Women, children and men have set up a makeshift camp at the border area in hope that the border will open up to them.
Actually, we are just hoping that they might open the border, because no one is leaving from here to go backward, because there is no way to go back. You understand? And more people are coming. Every day we are receiving about 50 to 100 people. Every day they will still come. Right now we are about 3,000 of us, and more are still coming. So if they don't open the border, we'll stay here forever.
Despite increasing numbers of migrants amassing at the border and fears of a humanitarian crisis, Nicaragua has maintained its hardline stance on the migrants. Many of the African and Asian migrants reportedly paid human smugglers money to reach Central America in the hope of getting to the United States. The influx of African and Asian migrants follows a regional crisis earlier this year after Cuban migrants sought passage north to the United States through Central America. Deadlock was broken after Nicaragua and Costa Rica agreed to airlift more than 7,000 Cuban nationals to the U.S. border via Mexico. Zinzi Kibiku, KTN News.
Now, refugees from the Central African Republic continue to flee in border villages to Chad following renewed tensions. Clashes in CAR have continued since President Faustin Archange Touadera took power in March in an election intended to draw a line under intercommunal and interreligious violence.
Around 6,000 refugees from the Central African Republic have fled into neighboring Chad and Cameroon to escape renewed tension and violence that began in early June. The exodus from the country began on June 12th when clashes erupted between livestock herders and local farmers in and around the northwest region of Central African Republic. So far, more than 5,600 refugees have been registered in villages southern Chad, where screening and registration of new arrivals continues. A further 555 refugees have crossed to Yamba village in eastern Cameroon. The latest violence comes barely 6 months after the election of President Faustin Archange Touadéra ushered in hopes of lasting peace after 3 years of escalated conflict that left thousands dead and almost 1 million displaced. The fighting this year has also affected a further 25,000 to 30,000 people within Central African Republic, including many internally displaced in addition to those fleeing. In Chad, where people have been crossing despite the border being officially closed, about 2/3 of arrivals were under 18 years of age and many of them unaccompanied or separated from their families. UNHCR has appealed for $225 million for its Central African Republic operations, but has only received $24.7 million.
Now, hundreds of supporters greeted Zimbabwean pastor and activist Evan Mawarire after the courts cleared him of charges of treason. He led the biggest anti-government demonstrations in a decade last week, venting his anger about deteriorating social and economic conditions in Zimbabwe. It is unclear if the protest against President Robert Mugabe's administration will continue, especially after the police warned protesters of the quote-unquote full wrath of the law if they heeded Mawarire's calls for more demonstrations.
Mawarire is just an expression, is a figure, if you call it, an expression of people's anger. Because if you look around the social media, there's many similar, movements, if you will. And Mawarire has been one of the most vocal. But people have resonated and responded to his message. He's not a political party. It's just an individual. And people are rallying around that, because this flag symbolizes national pride for many, and I suppose many feel attached to it because this is their country. It's not a political party. It's just an expression of people's anger. And government arresting him just tells people that this government does not tolerate dissent, and that in itself is worrying for people.
Now, Hillary Clinton campaigned in Virginia with possible running mate Tim Kaine. Clinton is said to test whether Senator Tim Kaine is a safe vice president pick.
Hillary Clinton campaigned with potential vice presidential running mate U.S. Senator Tim Kaine in his home state of Virginia, testing whether the person widely seen as the safe choice can propel her to the White House in November. Kaine's 16-minute introduction of the presumptive Democratic nominee reflected Clinton's need to reach out to Hispanic voters with her vice presidential pick. Kaine is a former missionary in Honduras who speaks Spanish. He papered his introduction with Spanish phrases and criticism of Republican Donald Trump's statements regarding Latinos. He also made reference to presumptive Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump's reality television program, The Apprentice, where he famously told people, "You're fired."
But he's a "you're fired" guy, outsourcing jobs, stiffing contractors, being against minimum wage, being against equal pay for women, fighting with labor. He's a "you're fired" guy.
Kaine could help Clinton check a lot of boxes in the list of requirements for a running mate. Though the Clinton campaign is keeping the vice presidential selection process tightly under wraps, many Democrats in Washington see Kaine as the front-runner.
We are going to have a great convention in Philadelphia. I have no idea what's going to happen in Cleveland. It is going to be entertaining, I'm sure. If you're into bigotry, bluster, and bullying, if you're into drawing lines between Americans, if you're into insulting groups of Americans, if you're into saying you don't want to let Muslims in the country, you want to round up and deport 11 million people with a, quote, deportation force, if you enjoy seeing women demeaned,
Thursday's event with Kane gave Clinton an opportunity to gauge whether the 58-year-old Harvard-educated senator would help her fire up a crowd and make for a comfortable feat on the campaign trail. Ellen Wanjiru, KTN News.
A man convicted of beating a friend to death with a stick during a drunken fight over a woman 34 years ago is scheduled to be executed in Georgia. 60-year-old John Wayne Connor admitted to killing J.T. White on January 9, 1982, after White said he wanted to have sex with Connor's girlfriend, according to court documents. Connor would be the 16th person executed in the United States this year and the 6th in Georgia, according to the non-profit Death Penalty Information Center. Georgia's State Board of Pardons and Paroles denied Connor's request for clemency. He is remorseful for killing White, as well as another man, Jesse Smith, whose murder he pleaded guilty to in 1982 after his arrest in the White case. Well, let's take a short break now here on Worldview. Don't go too far. More news after that. Salva Kiir rules out more foreign troops in South Sudan. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Worldview, and right now we want to take a look at some of the news making headlines across the globe. And of course, joining us to take us through that is Trix Ingado. Trix.
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, everyone. And today we're starting off on a rather sad note where the Washington Post has led today with scores dead after truck rams crowd in France. I think by now it's 80 people dead. They have not confirmed the figures, but they keep on rising. So this the subhead for this article today is "Incident in Nice is treated as terrorism." Like we heard earlier, prosecutors in charge of investigating terror attacks in France have been entrusted with this particular incident. And if you take a look at the first paragraph, it says the truck struck a crowd celebrating Bastille Day, and the driver opened fire in French Riviera city of Nice, killing at least 84 people and injuring several others before the driver was shot to death by police. Of course, it went on for a whole mile before the driver was shot dead. So of course people were killed, many injured. They're expecting that around 100 people were injured in this very horrific incident. And if you remember, this is not the first time France is turning out to be a sort of target for terror attack. They have a lot of Arab and Muslim people living in their country, and of course some of these people happen to be unfortunately radicalized and they fall prey to this extremist group. And now of course we're seeing the aftermath, whereby a lot of terror attacks have been happening since 2015, with the killing of 11 people in the Charlie Hebdo newsroom. From that then on, there has been a string of terror attack since. So this paper is just trying to look at what happened on this particular day, but of course this is not something new. And the French President François Hollande has condemned the attack, and he has termed it as an act of terror. And down here we read, French President François Hollande condemned the attack and extended the country's state of emergency. A state of emergency was issued a while ago after yet another terror attack. And if you can remember, also there was the Egypt Air plane that was hijacked. No one knows really what happened, but it was also coming from Paris going to Cairo. So this is yet just another incident of unfortunately people dying following an attack. Some of them have been claimed, but as of yet it has not been claimed by either the Al-Qaeda or the ISIS. So if we can move on to the next paper, we are having The Times, and the headline today is "Dozens of revelers dead in Bastille Day massacre." So this is the same incident that is taking center stage. Here we are having a picture of bodies on the street. They have not been collected, of course, just showing the gravity and how huge this issue is. And we're having people standing next to their loved ones. Very touching stories on this paper. We're having people who were there, who witnessed this, and they're saying that there were even babies whose heads had been crushed because people did not see this coming. It's an annual event. It's a very beautiful place. A lot of people had come out. The fireworks had just been shown, and so they were preparing to leave. And then we have dozens of revelers dead in Bastille Day massacre. So lorry plows into crowds celebrating in Nice. Terror attack leaves more than 100 injured. So this is just showing the gravity of the incident, and it's around 180 people who have fallen victim to this very unfortunate incident where the man was shooting and actually hitting people in the wake of his very grim drive. And then here we are having Cameron allies slashed as May picks top people for her cabinet. So this is taking a look at British politics. Of course, this is a British paper, and Theresa May yesterday handpicked a lot of people that are her allies for her new cabinet. So this is just taking a look and analyzing the fact that a lot of people who were kicked out were Cameron's allies, and a lot of people that she replaced them with. For example, George Osborne, who was replaced by Hammond, or people that were close to her. So this is showing that she's not taking any chances. She's ready to try new things, like Boris, who is seen as someone who's controversial, but he has been put in a very key ministry to deal with things that are foreign affairs and things like that. And of course, he led the Brexit campaign. And so, given that he was given this ministry, I think it's in view that he knows well how to lead the country out of the EU. And the next paper that we are having there, if we take a look at another paper, I think we have the Mail Online, and this is leading with the terror attack in Nice. And the headline here is "Gun and Truck Attack Mows Down Dozens of Nice. Men, Women and Kids Left Strewn Across the Road After Lorry Speeds for a Mile Through Holiday Crowd Watching Fireworks Before Gunmen Opened Fire." The same story is taking headline, of course, very touching images. We can take a look here. We're seeing ISIS massacres 80. Of course, there has been no confirmation that this was actually an ISIS planned attack, but they're going with this. They're not mincing their words. And we're seeing here someone who's died. The body has been covered, and probably a relative or a loved one just sitting there looking very distraught and not knowing what to do there. And then we're having a video down there of perhaps what was transpiring, video footage probably from someone's smartphone of what happened as the truck was going down the street killing people. And you know, they're describing it as the bodies were flying away like bowling pins, just to show how the sheer force of this truck. And it was just not just a small truck, it was a huge truck, not just a canter or anything, the really long trucks with that of course at high speed they carry a lot of force. So we're seeing just the massacre, the aftermath. If you could scroll down, you can see more on this story, and of course Donald Trump's sentiments, where he said, "When will we learn?" So he has been saying this after every terror attack across the world. He asked the same question, when will he learn? And I think given the horrific nature of this footage and incident, maybe people will take a look at what Trump has been saying on Twitter and in his rallies and actually start thinking in a new way about this whole incident. They're saying horrifying footage captures the moment a truck plowed into screaming crowd in Nice after heroic motorcyclist throws himself on the vehicle and the police officers opened fire. So here you can take a look at this red circle is the motorcyclist who's really trying to chase after, running towards the danger as everyone was running away from it. And he has been circled here. He tried to intercept the truck. Of course, given that it's a huge truck and he's on a motorcycle, there's nothing really that he could have done, if anything, actually. And then if you take a closer look at this footage, you'll see there are police officers shooting at this truck. There are also some people running towards it, trying to put a stop to this very unfortunate incident as it was transpiring. If we could take a look at The Guardian next, the headline is also the French massacre. Of course, they also have bits and pieces of, let's take a look at The Guardian. They also have bits and pieces of politics. But here we are having a very interesting slideshow of the pictures of the incidences during, after, and giving an aftermath. So you're having the headline in red saying Bastille attack, Bastille Day truck attack. Bastille is, of course, the national holiday that was being celebrated on this day. And then French president denounces monstrous killing of 84 people. So the death toll, according to this paper, is 84. We are not really sure because of these incidences. It keeps changing, things keep shifting. And so this is what they're leading with. They're showing very interesting, touching photos of what happened right then and there. And then if we scroll down, we're having another attack. What we know so far. So if you want to take a look at the aftermath and also previous incidences of what happened in France when people were being shot at, you can take a look at that Nice attack headline in blue. And then down here we're having François Hollande, once more horror has struck France. So this is not new, nothing new. People have been attacking this country for so long, since I think the Charlie Hebdo was the beginning of where the rain started beating them, and since then there have been several attacks. France is very vulnerable at this moment, and he has said he's going to extend the state of emergency that was placed after some attack back in a few months ago. And there's also video footage of the truck barreling down the 1 mile path. It was zigzagging, trying to catch anyone who is trying to run away and just kill them in its wake. Then we have hysteria and terror. Partygoers throw children to safety amid stampede. So a very interesting, touching view of some of the people who had their babies. Some of them tell what they did. Some of them grabbed the kids and ran off. Some of them threw the kids and were killed. Some of the children, unfortunately, were caught up in this horrible incident, and they actually were smashed, and it's really, really sad. And then the armed man drove truck at high speed through crowds for 2 kilometers. So they're going with 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers is the equivalent of 1 mile. So this gives you perspective of how long this happened and how many people, that's how come 84 people were killed while by this rogue driver. Then we can take a look at another paper here. We are having the Daily Times, and it has moved away from the normal stuff that everyone is covering, the terror attack, and it's going with People versus O.J. Simpson. Game of Thrones score top Emmy nomination. So this is just taking a look at the entertainment scene in the world, and it's shining a light on some of the very huge movies and series that are being celebrated and taking the honors. And here we're having a slideshow of some of the casts of the movies and the entertainers who are being awarded here. This is what they're leading with, which is not really, if you take a look, give it perspective to what's happening around the world, it's not really big news at the moment. And then if we take a look at the China Daily, it's having a slideshow, a very clever way of covering the world news, because there's different areas have different priorities. So here we're having the truck that killed people. Here we're having different interesting pictures. You're seeing these horses, I think they're biting each other or something. And then we are having the South Sea drama happening in the South Sea Ocean. And then you're having this fun time. Kids are having fun at the Children's International Toys Expo in Beijing. And then Theresa May is still taking center stage. So this, I think, is a way of encapsulating everything that's happening across the world in one headline. I think that's all for today. We've had a mouthful of what's happening around the world. I'll hand it over back to Sharon to get us through that interesting interview she has lined up for you.
Well, thank you so much, Trix. Indeed, the biggest news that the world woke up to, and indeed tragic news, is that attack in Nice, and we're told that the death toll as of now is 84. Most unfortunate indeed. Now, days ago, South Sudan, witnessed fresh attacks, and we have spoken to a number of authorities just trying to put that civil war into perspective, why it keeps recurring. But today we wanted to take a simple look at life in South Sudan, what it is to work there, what it is like to live there. And joining us this morning is George Onyango Abila. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes. Right, maybe you can tell us, introduce yourself a bit to us. What do you do in South Sudan, in Juba specifically?
Okay, my names are George Onyango Abila. I'm an electrician by profession.
You can just
I was taken there by my company called Central Electricals. We were doing a project called UAP, Equatorial Tower, in Juba town. As we speak, life in South Sudan is a bit tricky, and if I might talk a little about the government there.
Maybe when did you go there? How long have you been living?
Okay. I set my foot in South Sudan in 2013. In 2013 February.
All right.
When my company took me there.
Okay.
Okay. When my first time in Juba, life in Juba is it's hot. You can spend your time. You don't have with cardigans. You are just in a vest all the day.
Like Mombasa kind of
like
hot.
Mombasa. Even at night, you can bathe like 4 times in a day. Is when you can feel now you are at your good.
Makes you comfortable.
Yeah. So I started working there in Juba. I can bring a little story of what happened in 2013 also. Sure. I was there, and I happened to witness something, a horrible time. Right. There was a fight broke up in 2013 December. I think if I recall vividly, it was 15th December of 2013.
Yes.
We were there, and I was working there. What I witnessed, Helen, it was horrible. And what I can advise the international community, that this group of forces, one having forces, one having his forces, it's a bit tricky.
Okay, and we just want to understand, like, you know, for many people, we perhaps there's a picture of Juba as a city, very young nation, the most, you know, the youngest nation really in the world, but has been experiencing tension, civil strife. Is this an ongoing mood in Juba? Is it always a constant state of, you know, fear, or is life normal, you know, even before these recent attacks? Like the day-to-day kind of atmosphere.
Life atmosphere in Sudan is not at, we can say, in Kenya. Life there is difficult. You don't know what will happen tomorrow, because you live there with fear. And even interacting with our people there, those
Kenyans in Juba.
The Kenyans and even the Juba people, it's a bit difficult. You live with fear.
All right.
You don't know what will happen tomorrow. And even our colleagues, those local who are there, to cope with them is very challenging. You can wake up on the road, you are going for work, a guy can stop you and asking you, who are you, and where are you from, and where are you going?
Like people are suspicious.
Yes, and if you fail even to, if you ask, why are you asking these kind of questions, that's a harshness. He can upset you, he can bully you. So life in South Sudan, it's difficult.
Because of that constant state of fear and people living with suspicion of each other.
Yeah.
And when you were sent there for work, before you even got to experience, were you happy about the opportunity?
First, I was fearing with the life, because what we were hearing from there, when you are watching the television. So first, I was like, I'm not comfortable going there. But through interrogation with the family and my friends, I happened to reach there.
All right.
Yes.
And you moved there alone, not with your family?
No, I moved there alone.
All right. What is the community of Kenyans living in Juba like? Is there a big number of Kenyans? Do you interact as a community of Kenyans living in Juba?
Ellen, being in a group there in South Sudan, even you are fearing your life, because these people and I may say the government, they don't like grouping. If you want to group, if you want to maybe have a group of your country, you have to register, and the registration is somehow it's not easy. Yeah, you have to explain what group Why are you grouping?
Right.
It's not like here you can have a group and maybe chat after work. A group of maybe 10 people or more than 10 people is impossible.
Right.
They are just
so
suspicious.
It makes even social kind of gatherings
it's not easy.
Difficult.
Difficult.
Right. And
yes.
and what would you say are some of the challenges of the Sudanese citizens that you interact with? Of course, there's a big community of Sudanese that moved to live in Kenya. What are some of their day-to-day fears as you have interacted with them?
Yeah, okay. What they are fearing is life and the economy. I'm telling you, life there since 2013 after war, life there, the life, the commodities has skyrocketed like 300%. You know, getting things to eat,
right.
Clothes, it's difficult. Even the local themselves, raising the money, maybe for feeding, for their clothing, is not easy because things are expensive. Yeah, because this young nation, they rely with the outside countries like Kenya, Uganda, and other East African community. So life is difficult,
right.
and you see when chaos broke, the economy went up. Yes, skyrocketed seriously. Even having something to put on the table is not easy.
Okay, but surely, George, it can't be all bad. What are some of the nice things, that you enjoy in Juba, that people enjoy in Juba?
Helen, what I can say in Juba, I can say the hotness is what I can enjoy, because instead of going to jacuzzi,
it's natural.
It's a natural.
So you like the weather.
So that's what I can say.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe finally, what, as a person working in Juba and one that has interacted with locals, what is the prayer of the civilians for South Sudan and for yourself for South Sudan? What do you hope to see this nation?
Yeah. What I can say is that the nation to move forward.
Right.
The leaders, they must come together. They should leave they should leave forces.
Right.
Each forces, they should come with one force to help the nation to move forward. This case of having, I might say, the vice presidents having forces, the presidents having forces, it's somehow difficult. Always people are they are suspicious of themselves. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Right.
And my prayer is that let them be peaceful. Let be next to God and pray, and God will one day will help them and move forward.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
George.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your experience from South Sudan and Juba with us.
Yeah.
Right, and right now we want to move forward. Of course, we were speaking to George, a Kenyan who works in Juba, just telling us what every day-to-day life is in that country that has recently witnessed, fresh violence. And right now, a recap of our top story now, and French officials say that there are at least 84 people dead, with 18 more in critical condition and many others with injuries. The driver was killed by police at the scene. It is unknown if the driver acted alone. There has been no claim of responsibility for the attack, and French President Francois Hollande has extended a nationwide state of emergency by 3 months. President Salva Kiir has vowed not to allow any additional foreign troops in South Sudan. He was reacting to proposals to deploy an intervention force within a UN mission in South Sudan to protect civilians. Kiir says there are over 12,000 foreign troops in South Sudan and there is no need for more. Fresh violence erupted in Juba between July 7th to 11th and claimed unconfirmed over 1,000 lives. However, Juba has been claimed that since Monday, following a declaration of a ceasefire by the president, foreign missions were Thursday busy evacuating their nationals for fear of another round of fighting.
The UNMISS here has so many foreign troops. So we will not accept even a single soldier. We will not accept that. I talked to Dr. Yek in the morning today. I talked with him and I asked him to come, but it was difficult for him to accept. I asked him also to tell his ministers who are now in the hotels here in Juba, to tell them to come out, and so that they talk to me. I talk to them of what we should be doing. Still, there is resistance that he thinks that his ministers are not secure, they cannot be safe. I told him these people are in the hotels and their hotels are known.
Right, and that's where we wrap up today's edition of Worldview. Thank you so much for watching. And on Country Facts today, I leave you with a spotlight on Solomon Island. I'm Sharon Momanyi. Good morning.
and found positive will be started immediately on antiretroviral treatment. And this testing starts from birth. Therefore, all people tested for HIV and found positive will be put on treatment. Focus will also be